Good morning, everyone. Welcome here to this event that we are going to talk about food chain and how we decouple this from deforestation. The name of this panel is how are Brazilian agri-food companies fighting deforestation in their supply chain. So my name is Luana Maia. I am the Director of Strategic Planning and Operations of CBEDS. CBEDS is the Business Council for Sustainable Development. It's a huge council in Brazil that represents more than 50% of Brazilian GDP. We have more than 100 companies engaged with us, working on several fronts of the sustainability, not only deforestation, but also biodiversity, also food system as a whole. We work on climate change, and we work on carbon markets, financing, and many other topics. For us, it's very important to help companies achieving their targets on eliminating deforestation because of a single fact. This is not the interest of the business to have deforestation in their supply chain. We know that the many stakeholders are working to fight climate change and to fight deforestation, but this is not at all a simple issue in Brazil. And just to give you a background of what happened here is, I know you have been listening to many people talking on deforestation, but today we're going to give you a perspective from the business sector. And when we talk about emissions in Brazil, more than half of our emissions come from deforestation. And the problem is, I don't know if all of you know that 98% of this deforestation is illegal. And it's a very complex issue to be understood by those who don't know the reality of Amazon, for example. And I'm pointing out Amazon because Amazon is where we have most of our deforestation in the country, around 60%. So it is what we're going to discuss today with a lot of courage is how we have to put together all the stakeholders that are needed to fight and to eliminate deforestation. CBEDS is joining here the Climate Week. We are also going to be doing COP27 in many events. One of them is in the Food System Pavilion, where we will be launching the study we are going to present to you today. The study we are going to present is a preliminary result of this final study we are going to launch in November. And we are also going to join during COP15, the biodiversity COP. We're going to be there to also put and represent the voice of the business sector doing in the new biodiversity framework, which is also very important agenda for us because, as you may know, target 15 of the new framework has to do with the role of the business sector in protecting biodiversity. So I'm giving you all this all this idea because when you talk about deforestation, when you talk about decoupling deforestation from the whole supply chain, it means that we have to deal with many aspects. It's not only carbon markets, for example, it's not only Amazon, it's not only biodiversity, it's everything together. And furthermore, we have to consider the social impact we have in the supply chain as well. And I was mentioning that the majority of the deforestation in Brazil is in Amazon. And I would like to give you some numbers regarding Amazon so you have an idea of how complex it is. Amazon involves more than actually 9 countries, and we have more than 29 million people living there. It's nearly the size of Europe. So when you bear in mind what we're going to talk and discuss here in this panel is Amazon is not a city. It's like a continent. So there is no easy solution. The courage, I believe that companies that are here sharing their experiences is so relevant because it is a very, very hot and complex topic to talk. So let me just now thank Nutri, who is with us in supporting this event, and present to you the great panelists we're going to have today. So we're going to have Isabel Drigo, the Managing Climate Data Science Knowledge Management and Advocacy from IMAFlora, which is the Institute of Forestry and Agriculture Management in Brazil. And she is the lady who is going to present to us these preliminary results of the study. She's going to have 15 minutes to present the study to us. And then I'm going to invite the other colleagues here to comment on the study. We're going to have with us the Professor Raoni Rajão, who is a professor at the Federal University at Minas Gerais State, and he's also a research fellow in the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C. We're also going to have Catarina Pires from Nutri. She is the head of corporate affairs Latam for agriculture solutions. And we are also going to have Juliana Lopes, who is the Director of ESG Communications and Compliance at AMAGGI. So without further ado, Isabel, I now call upon you to give us the explanation and the preliminary results of this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Luana. Thank you all. Good morning, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk a little bit about our preliminary results of this study, but it's something to share with you and to discuss. I will share my screen to start. That's okay? So I can't see.
It's okay.
Okay. So let's start. As I said, and as Luana already said, I will present the preliminary results of this study that's called Agri-Food Chains and the Challenges of Eliminating Deforestation, talking about actors, so the companies, but also other organizations, regulation strategies, and interactions. It's a co-development with the team of CEBEDS, with this important support of Nutri. So I will provide three parts. A little bit very quickly about the context, also very quickly about some theoretical concepts we are using to look at the agri-food system and the agri-food chains. And finally, to talk about the main results to this moment about the regulations, trends, actors, and interactions to fight this big issue that is deforestation linked with the agri-food chains. So, about the context, actually, Luana already said a little bit about these numbers, so I will not repeat all of them. But the important here, that is deforestation is a matter to all Brazilian territory and to all the biomes we have. So we have already lost a lot of forests and other typologies of native vegetation. So we have to really to resolve this problem, to be able to have all the potential that Brazil has as an economic nation, as an environment and social environment nation. And it's not a simple issue. In fact, illegality is very high in this context. And our very, very recent study find that between a third and half of the motivated deforestation does not become really land effectively in agricultural production. So we are not turning and changing the use of land to be productive, to make more wealth for the country. And you know, and everybody knows that we have in the world a great concern about ensuring food security. So the context is how we can solve this problem of deforestation and secure food for the people here in Brazil, within Brazil. Okay, so just a minute. Yeah. So that said, as a big picture, I will provide to you very quickly just a little concept of the focus, the methodological focus we use it to understand a little bit more about how companies and other organizations and also public agents are interacting to solve this problem. This is illustration, sorry, because it's in Portuguese, but just to show that are different approach to study the agri-food chains. We can put focus on the part of the relationship between the different chain of the productive chain. But we can also put more focus to understand how the agri-food system works. And the agri-food system in this conception, represents an extended proposal of the concept of the productive chains, because it evolves the institutional environment, and the institutional environment is all the organizations that are creating rules, are creating ways to function to the market and to the other organizations. And also the supporting organizations. We can understand these like the researchers, like the academic, like the technical institutions, the technical organizations that are supporting the companies and the producers to implement different productive system models. So the agents can operate in this system to cooperate or to compete. So there is competition also. And relationships will change over time due to external aspects. For instance, we will see, for instance, because of the new regulations in external markets or in other countries, on the demand side part of the market, for instance, or to changes in technology. If you have a new technology that is capable to change the way the production is made, it will entail change also in the organization of the agri-food system, the type of contracts, the type of the technical assistance, for instance. So the important here is to stress that the relationships in the agri-food chains are more complex than only the producers, the buyers, and the consumers. Oh, sorry that I have a problem with my mouse. Okay. So let's go directly to some results. We looked to some trends and some regulations that are operating in this environmental system around the companies, around the other actors. So what you can see you have, and you probably know this, that we have some movements in the external markets. So we have new regulations coming from European Union, other regulations, the first acting coming from United States. You talk, they will demand more risk analysis, more implementation of traceability systems, and all these new regulations and a trend to more control in the supply chain will cost and will demand changes in the way that countries and companies and also civil society are making their relations, are figuring out the solutions to reach these challenges. So you are already reorganizing the links and the connections necessary to prove that the supply chains are free of deforestation. It means to have access to data, to reach more producers in the chain, it will be really a very challenging implementation of these new rules. In the other way, we have the domestic market. We have to remember that Brazil, for beef, for instance, it has a huge market, a huge domestic market. And we have our own regulations. We have forest code, we have the environmental registry of the properties, and you have to implement completely, in a completely way, these regulations. We have many challenges to do that, because remember the context, we have to eliminate illegal, not producers, but illegal people speculating with land and only deforesting for other interests. And we have to help producers that want to be producers. And even they have problems, social, environmental problems, we have to find a way to reinsert these producers in the system, in the economic system, in the productive system. So we have to implement our domestic policies to be able to attend this domestic market in a sustainable way. So, and the other important message in this study coming from literature, it's not, it's already published. That is the potential for international measures to regulate supply chains is important, is complementary, but is not sufficient. Because if you wanted to try to comply with the demands of external markets, you not solve the internal problem, because you have already a lot of leakage of deforestation. So we have to work with our medium and small meat industry, with the indirect suppliers in the beef chain, in the soy chain, and with diversity in production also, to be able of the producers be economically viable. So it's really necessary. One of the studies we have reviewed, it's really necessary to reduce deforestation is strengthening the sustainable rural development in the territories. So we need the economic policies and the technical knowledge, the scientific knowledge together. That's the main message here. And the last one, it's a very quickly presentation. I hope I will okay with the time, because I can't see the chat now.
We still have 5 minutes, Isabel, it's okay.
Okay, so that's okay. So after look to the regulations and the trends that are shaping the way actors are operating, we look at also at the actors themselves, actions and interactions happening in this context and with these regulations and trends operating. So what is happening? It will be very quickly, but we can discuss more. You can see two kinds of approach here. So we have the meat industry, the soy traders, the retailers in Brazil. Also, it's not here, but also some financial institutions trying to operate in two different ways. There are commitments to eliminate deforestation. They are public commitments, private commitments, bilateral commitments signed with the federal prosecutors, for instance, but they are all operating in multi-stakeholder spaces, in multi-stakeholder forums. It's very, very interesting. So we have the commitment for the legal beef. We have federal prosecutors, we have civil society, we have academic together, figuring out the solutions to monitoring, to report and to verify the compliance in the supply chain. It's easy. It's not an easy task, but it's necessary to have the, or to how do I say that, to overcome main obstacles, main barriers. Even we are talking about one part of the supply chain, more about the how to monitor and to verify deforestation in the direct suppliers, and the challenge to reach the indirect suppliers. This is one kind of approach. The other kind of approach that's very interesting also is linked with the carbon neutrality targets of each company. So we have in the we had in the last 2 years programs coming with the meat industry, if the soy industry, also other agriculture sectors like coffee, like other grains, like that not only soy, with programs working with the producers to transfer technology to producers. Most of this technology are within the public plans, the public policies like the ABC plan of the federal government. It's very interesting because there is a private movement that use the menu of the public policies to make better the production in the field. So it's another approach that will contribute also to reduce deforestation in the properties among the producers that want to produce, that are professional producers. And we have, it's linked with the carbon neutrality, but we have also the movement of regenerative agriculture. That's important also because there is the link with increased resilience of the productive systems with the climate agenda. And then we have, again, the discussion about the conservation of soils, the conservation of water, the conservation of biodiversity. So there is a more positive way, but it's very important also to contribute to the issue of deforestation, because we need forests to have water, we need forests to have balance of biodiversity that will benefit the production. So that's different approaches, commitments more linked to the pressure from the external to the internal actors, but to have these other movements around carbon neutrality, low carbon agriculture, regenerative agriculture that will put investment, will put more efforts and combined efforts with who wants to produce, really produce in a good way. Then I talk a little bit, but we have some programs in these both approaches. In the side of monitoring, on the side of the commitments, we have at least a part of the supply chain, as I already said, monitored about the systems. But and this with sure as impacting to restrain at least a portion of the deforestation. But we have limits also in these commitments. We have to reach indirect suppliers, because we have a lot of small and medium suppliers that are not reached. There's problems with the access to data. Professor Raoni, you talk a little bit about that. We have some solutions at the table, but it's a very huge challenge, especially to the beef sector, and a little also with the soy sector. We have a lot of leakage because if you solve only the supply chain of the large meat industry is not sufficient, because other small and medium meat industries will buy the cattle with deforestation. And you have the lack of fight illegality. Then we need government, we need more public policies to command and control to fight illegality. And in programs with the carbon agenda, as I said, it's interesting. So we have some project pilots, we have some producers understand the benefits to have a more sustainable productive model. But again, we have the problem of scale. So we need also to reach the indirect supplies, to go to the scope 3 with these carbon projects. And we need also, as a limit, we need a market to the agricultural carbon. We have now a boom again of the forest carbon, but we need to put in value the agricultural carbon. We need to pay and how to pay the producers that really will demonstrate, will show their progresses in terms of low carbon agriculture. So that's some of the findings of the studies for now, and I think we can discuss. Sorry if I passed my time. I hope not.
Thank you so much, Isabel. I think you gave a very broad and important overview, and the main challenge of this panel is to explain all this complexity in just 1 hour and a half. So I gave you 5 extra minutes.
Thank you.
So what you were saying is that actually Amazon protection is good for Brazilian economy, and not only Brazilian economy, but Brazilian agriculture. And the complexity of all this is embedded in all the stakeholders. So although we have private commitments, we depend on public policies as well. So that's why we wanted to have the perspective of the business sector as well. And I would like you, Catarina, to talk about, well, your experience and basically what are the most attractive findings of the study so far that calls your attention?
Thank you, Luana, and thank you, Isabel, for sharing key findings of the study. Well, to begin with, let me say that I am very proud to be here representing Nutrien, which is a very young Canadian multinational present in Brazil and already as one of the leading agri-retail companies here in Brazil, providing solutions to small and mid-sized growers. Well, as Isabel shared with us, deforestation is not a new problem, it's not a new issue for us all. And although we have been improving in the past decades on how to deal with this issue, we know, and the study highlights that, we know that we need to go beyond, broader, further, to do better, to find better solutions to prevent this deforestation. This is one of the reasons Nutrien is sponsoring this study, to better understand the challenges, but also the opportunities and the missing spots. And considering that Nutrien is this young company doing business with small and mid-sized growers in Brazil, in our perspective, the relevance of this study, first of all, is to support a newcomer just like ourselves, to benchmark the successful examples and initiatives in the ag chain and learn and be able to learn with these positive examples, be able to be inspired by these positive examples. And second, use these positive examples not only to develop our own initiatives but also to be able to implement current alliances in the ag chain. And by doing that, being able to include our family farming customers and mid-sized ones in this journey of sustainable agriculture, beyond compliance with the forestry code, but in the path towards the low carbon agriculture. Inclusive agriculture is one of our core values, and we truly believe that the retail and distribution link in the ag chain can play a significant role here. And I'll stop here so that we can hear the other panelists and be inspired by them.
Thank you so much, Catarina. You were saying that we have to include the family-sized producers, and this is one of the main challenges we have. And when we talk about Scope 3, we know that we have to tackle all this. And CEBEDS is going to launch this net zero platform during COP27 in order to help. Like, we know that big companies already know how to do that, but and what about their suppliers? So we have to capacity everyone, and we know that this is not at all an easy task. And we are talking about deforestation, can be in Amazonia or Cerrado. We know we have to deal with a lot of informal economy. So it is a huge issue indeed. So let me give the word now to Raoni, who has been working and studying and researching deforestation in Amazon and Cerrado for the last, 20 years. Please give me your thoughts on how this study is calling our attraction.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and congratulations, Isabel and the team for the study. I think you really bring some very interesting elements here. One of them, which I believe it's probably one of the most important in my perspective, is the need to develop solutions which are actually sector-wide. It's not enough for a single company to move forward, or even a group of companies, if the whole sector is not moving forward, because otherwise we're going to have a lot of leakage. So basically, bad providers and people who are deforesting, rather than selling the produce to one specific set of companies, they're going to just switch and sell it to another set of companies that, for instance, cater mostly to the domestic market. And also, I think it brings us to the need also to consider what kinds of data do we need here. And I think, as you pointed out, one of the companies, they actually are already moving forward, and you can see this very clearly, how they are implementing different solutions to monitor their direct providers, because that's basically the actors that they relate directly to. However, the supply chains are much more complex, and quite often, even in the soy sector, not only in the beef sector, you might have situations where farmers might be, taking soy from another farm with deforestation and just laundering it through their own farms. And sometimes it's quite often very hard for the companies themselves to know where it's coming from. And I think this is where it's really crucial here to emphasize the need of governmental data infrastructures that give transparency for the whole sector, so that good decisions can be made. And this is particularly important in relation to the detection of problems coming down the indirect providers that might actually be going up and linking the product sold and directly to our big companies to deforestation. One of the solutions of that is called Selo Verde, or Green Label, which has been adopted by the governments of Pará and also now Minas Gerais, and which development it's done by our group. But I believe there's going to be another round of questions that we might be going more into detail about the challenges about that and how we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Raoni. We will love to hear about Selo Verde in the next few minutes. And now let me listen to Juliana, who is also an expert in the topic. She has been working at AMAG for many years, and she knows the reality. She knows how the field works. And I like, because Juliana, you have a very pragmatic approach, and I'd like to share your view on the study and how this aligns or not with this pragmatic approach you have.
Thank you, Luana. I'm so sorry about the voice, but I hope people are going to understand what I say. I think the study is very important for us, especially to that gives the idea that we don't have a silver bullet that will solve all the problem. We need to understand that to tackle deforestation in Brazil, you need governmental approach, private sector approach, academia, and data. We need a lot of data to guarantee that we are going to do what is need to be done. Looking for the study, one of the main points that I think Isabel brings is that there is a difference between what is international market and what is national market, but it's correlated. So we also cannot see this in a different approach, like of how we are going to solve issues for national, for domestic market, and how we are going to solve issues for the international market. We need to combine both of them. For the companies, it's a very difficult issue to tackle, not because we don't want to, but it's everything that is around us. Hawani brought us a very important information about a very important approach, which is governmental data. All the companies needs to have as much as data as possible, but all the companies also have a legal approach that needs to be covered. You have data privacy, you have a lot of requests that the company needs to structure around receiving those data, and also how to use it internally and guaranteeing that is complying with all the legislation included. So having the data in a way that all the companies can use, it is the crucial thing. Because sometimes we have the data, but we cannot use the data the way it is. So I think those things needs to be covered in some analysis. What is the type of data and how this data needs to be delivered to the companies? Because rarely we are going to be able to include information from our supply chain in public data or in other informations due to legislation. So it is a very difficult approach for the companies to fulfill. But it's not, let's say that it's difficult, but it's not unimaginable. Let me give the perspective of AMAGGI. Right now, we are going to launch our 4th progress report for our commitment for zero deforestation, zero conversion in our value chain. If you look into the results that we are going to launch it today, I'm already able to cover 99.7% of my direct suppliers in the Amazon biome and in the Cerrado biome, and for around 30% of the indirect suppliers, looking to a polygonal approach. This means that right now I'm monitoring on a daily basis almost 17 million hectares every day, which around, let's say I think about almost 8 million is productive area. So I think it's very important to guarantee that all this information that is crucial for the company to deliver to the national, to domestic and international market to be connected to internet, to governmental platforms. And I think we can go deeper on this analysis, but let's say that if we don't work together, the deforestation will not solve itself. We need everybody on board.
Thank you so much, Juliana, and your voice was completely clear and your approach very pragmatic as always. And I love the fact you said it's difficult, it's tough, but it's not unimaginable. It's not at all impossible. And you are showing this, you are proving this by giving your numbers. So Nutri and other companies that are just landing now in Brazil can get inspired by AMAGGI and Juliana that has been in this task for many, many years. All of you has been talking about the complexity of solving this approach. So we do have data, but which data should we use or not? We do have governmental structure, but sometimes we don't have the enforcement of the law. We do have private commitment. So for those who are listening to us, try to understand all this complexity. We have to combine many aspects. So it's not at all easy. And what I'm going to ask, and starting with Raoni, I would like to know, what do you think, how we can advance to eliminate the deforestation in agri-food chain? What we are missing, because we talked about so many things here, but what are we missing? Public policies, financing, technology, incentives, everything together. Give me your view on that, please.
Yeah, I believe there are different nodes that require some improvement coming from the regulation of the financial sector. Also, of course, the companies, there is always ways to improve. But I think one aspect which I think it's really crucial is the need to have a leveling playing ground in terms of information. There is a lot of information asymmetry right now. So, for instance, you have quite often a situation where farmers, they would go forward and sell their cattle or sell their soy. They know that soy, that cattle might not be coming from the best provenance from an environmental point of view. And as you have a big agro company buying that, there's no way that company have the same information. Of course, that the seller is not going to tell them, right? And so how can we build that? And one of the challenges, as already mentioned by Juliana, is that a lot of that data is actually protected correctly so, because those are personal data, those are commercially sensitive data. So the alternative solution, which is just open all the invoice information about the country, open all the sanitary information about the country, and just put it online with all the names, etc., is probably not viable from a legal perspective. So that is why it's important to create an intermediary layer of information that aggregates that information, that only shows to the next level the necessary data, so that layer can make its own decisions, and hiding away all the personal and sensitive information that might be problematic. And this, for instance, is the idea behind Selo Verde in the state of Pará and Mato Grosso. So basically, it doesn't show any personal information, and individual farms can be searched using the CAR code, which is the Rural Environmental Registry code, and then a buyer, a bank, can go there and check, for instance, if that specific farm is complying or not with the forest code, whether it has fines, embargoes, whether it is linked to a slave labor list, for instance, and most importantly, whether that farm specifically have been buying cattle and maybe in the future also soy from other farms with deforestation. And so in that case, you can also see situations such as this, where people might be trying to launder illegal, produced agri-food commodities, and then trying to push it up the supply chain. And while at the same time, protecting information, and also protecting, the rights of the people who produce that kind of data.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to listen to you all, because we have a lot of the answers, and I know we are moving forward towards the right direction, but this just shows how complex it is, because we do have to compete with illegality, with the informal economy, that, we have informality or informal economy in many other sectors, and we do have in food system chain as well. So it is a complex issue. It's nice to hear that we are going towards a good direction, but it's still very tough. So I'd like to hear now, Catarina, after listening to Juliana and Raoni, and as you said, we are landing in Brazil right now. What do you think are the main challenges at the moment?
Yeah, as Juliana wisely mentioned, there's no silver bullet here. You, Luana, just mentioned about the illegality perspective of deforestation, and stronger law enforcement is crucial, but this is not enough. And one of the key findings of this study is the opportunity that the ag chain has to develop these alliances among different links in the chain to escalate programs aiming not only to fight deforestation, but to stimulate sustainable ag practices. And Juliana talked about data, and we know there are lots of investments and efforts from several different companies in the chain, building databases, trying to find wiser ways to monitor what's going on in the field level. So imagine the possibility that we have ahead of us if we put all this data together to benefit this common purpose, which is to fight deforestation. Not only talking about private databases, but putting all of the public effort as well together with this. There's no silver bullet. And so when we talked about, and the study highlights this possibility of being better in building multi-stakeholder alliances, we have several possibilities in this way. And these alliances can provide and should provide farmers a combination of knowledge, training, capacity building, access to financial mechanisms, technology access, and to support them be able and successfully blend food production with environmental preservation. As a big company here, young but already big with a national presence in Brazil, dedicated to serve small farmers, we can support the ag chain, as I mentioned, to reach the small ones and support them to join this path towards zero deforestation. And something that are also important to include in these alliances is that there is this need to go beyond commodities exported. So we need to bring the attention as well, and the spotlight to social crops such as cassava, banana, cocoa, veggies, these crops that serve the internal market demand, and include this perspective in our multi-stakeholders alliances as well.
Thank you so much, Catarina. You said we have to blend food production and conservation. I think this is the step we are going in this direction, because nowadays, I mean, it's been some years, but I'm sure that the business sector is worried about, and they know that it's important to combine production and conservation. Just to give you an example, Sebet launched the business movement, the Amazon business movement in 2020. And this movement was launched because of the will of the business sector vocalizing the importance of protecting Amazon. And we don't want it to be attached to deforestation. It's not good for business. And we are doing this movement. We are always inviting more and more companies to take part, because we know that the solution and the answer is not going to be a single one. We must have everyone talking about that it's not interest of anyone to have deforestation. It's not good to Brazil, it's not good to the world, and it's not good to the planet Earth. To be very honest, it's not good for the planet Earth. So now I'd like to, before going to Juliana, Isabel, since you are listening to the comments about the study, you are so dedicated to the study, I would like to know your view on what is missing, because some of them said that you have to put the data together. Do you think it's the data? What do you think? Do you think that is we're missing public policies, financing, incentives, technology? I'd like to hear from you. What do you think?
Okay, yes, Luana, I would like to say that this part of the missing aspects or the missing actions. One thing that in Maflora we are working, it's the issue of reinsertion of producers with environmental irregularities. So what is missing also are the public policies that will deal with the necessity, with the need to reinsert producers in the systems. Because it will not work only to block producers. And I'm talking about producers, really producers, not criminal people. So two challenges and two missing policies. We need to have, as Katarina said, strong law enforcement to eliminate the part of crime of this scenario. So it really need public policies as we had, not sufficient, but we had this, and we need again these very strong policies to separate this kind of persons. But we need also another set of public policies to be able to reach, for instance, the indirect suppliers of the beef sector, the small ones, the medium to small ones, because if they have environmental irregularities, they need help to have working plans, real working plans, with terms very defined, with very clear terms to introduce the good practice and to fix the environmental problem, and a very transparent system to show progress. And we need that, as Juliana said, maybe combining private investments with public investments, not only one side will be able to make possible this huge action. So the problem of, I think, the reinsertion of producers that want to work in a good way, it's key for the economic, it's key for the social part of this issue of deforestation. And you need to, again, to build or rebuild some policies and to join efforts from the private sector with the public sector. That's I think, Flora, we are talking a lot about of this.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Yeah, you were in the beginning of your talk, you said public policy to reinsert the workers. I have been working with, when we were talking about that workers need technical assistance or the diffusion of the technology, it is something very important, and we also have to bear in mind the level of education of many of them in the field. For those who don't know Brazilian reality, I think it's also important to mention that some of them are people that are not very aware of the use of very complex data. So that's why we were saying that protection and ending deforestation has to do with the whole Brazilian economy. It's not good for business, but it's not good for the country, because we have to work on education, we have to work on social impact. It is, as I said several times today, a very complex topic. Let me ask you, Juliana, do you share this same view as Isabel? What would you add more? What is missing? I mean, because when people are hearing us, it has the appearance that we already know the answers, and somehow I think we do know the answer, but it's hard to implement. And when Isabel was talking about the law, we do have very good laws in Brazil, but they must be implemented. They must be enforced. So I don't want to get into elections, but in 9 days, we're going to have elections in Brazil, and we're going to see how things will go. But I would like to hear you, if you shared the common idea, as Isabel said.
It is a very difficult question to answer, Luana, because I think I would need 2 days to answer this. Because if you look into the challenges that we have also a dichotomy to face. So let me give you 2 examples. When we launched it in our global sustainability goal in 2017, one of the topics was the things that we do not have the answer, but we have the questions. And 2, really launch like this it was a challenge for the company because it's where you have your vulnerabilities there. And you say that I have those information, however, they are not sufficient for me to do something. So I need to start to work on some things to have all the information that I need to implement things. And the implementation will not be that fast as the market or the stakeholders wants, because I need to take care of other stakeholders as well that they don't even know how to begin. So it was a courage move from the company, but also we faced a lot of challenges because there was a lot of stakeholders from the financial market, from clients saying that you are being too transparent and you are putting us in a danger. We are at risk because we don't want to say that we don't have the answers. And I said, okay, but if we continue to do business as usual and saying that we are doing everything we can, no, we have more things to do, but we don't know how to do it yet. We need to analyze everything. So it is very difficult to be transparent as well, to say that those are the gaps that I have, and those are the path that I want to go. And we go into the beginning. If we look into what Isabel mentioned about the farmers, the producers, we need to also to understand that most of them do not have information or knowledge enough to include their information on data systems. If we look into SEMA in Mato Grosso, one of their challenges was to make the analysis of the registries of the farm because there was a lot of a lot of mistakes. So it was not because of the producer that didn't want to do that, because let's face, we have like 13 Norway's information in the data system of area. So it is a big structure to have. And the farmers, they included their information there. But still, Mato Grosso is one of the most advanced states to analyze the car, but we still have a lot of issues to analyze all the car. And me as a company, I need to rely on the information that was analyzed by the state. When I don't have the final information validated by the state, I create the risk for myself as a company because I'm using an information that is still not validated. So when I mention that I need to do those things and I'm using information that is not validated, this is a risk that I need to be, I need to inform everyone. So I think those are the paths that we have to look on. We look into the governmental approach and we know what is missing and we know what they have to do. They know what they have to do, but we don't have the implementation as fast as we want it to be, or with challenges that we never even imagined during the implementation. This happens a lot. When I look into the company, it's the same thing. IT, it's always a surprise. When you think about doing something and you do and you start the analysis, some new comes up and you, okay, 6 months to work on this. So my new time frame will be that one. If you're looking to a lot of discussions on the market right now, it's carbon for agriculture, as Isabel mentioned. Let's face that almost all the projects that are there, they say that they need the documents from the farm to do the carbon agriculture project. More than 60% of them do not get the information that they need to make the analysis. So it is a lot of things that we need to look into. We could have a great proposal or a great target for Brazil, but we need to structure the base that we need so we can move on. So sometimes we make a lot of efforts at the end of the process, but we still need to do a lot of efforts in the beginning of the process.
Well, the way you were saying, I was reminding my time when I was working to the sugarcane industry, and when we had to shift from the manual harvest to the mechanized harvest, we didn't know. We had to help like the rural workers to operate a mobile phone. At that time, it was 2009, I don't remember right now, 2006. So it is technology and education. It is something very difficult to tackle. But as you were saying, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. You said unimaginable. So it's not. I think it depends on a lot of will, company will, business will, and public policy and enforcement and will from many decision makers. And there is another thing I was thinking. Brazil is a continental size country. Imagine how to trace everything that goes in Brazil in a supply chain. So it's not at all easy. I'm always pointing these figures or examples of Brazil because we are Brazilians. We know how complex it is. Some of us has never been gone to every state in Brazil, but it is a very hard task and to get to know how it is the country. Let me ask you now, Catarina, that since we said what has to be done, I would like to hear from you what you are doing at Nutrim. How is Nutrim contributing to decouple deforestation from the supply chain? Give me your pragmatical example, please.
It's very funny to hear Juliana, and she mentioned the digital and IT challenges, and those are the ones we are facing right now. Well, first of all, talking about Nutrim, we are doing the benchmark. We are newcomers, so we are investing to talk, to listen to farmers, listen to other companies such as Amagi and many other companies, institutions, financial institutions as well, about what has been tested to fight deforestation. We've learned that we can help to reach the small ones. And we can use our dense footprint. We are present in more than 13 states in Brazil and growing fast. And we can use hundreds and hundreds of our field consultants to spread knowledge on sustainable agriculture. Besides that, what we are really investing on is to provide access to sustainable technologies. As we have a broad portfolio of solutions, it is our responsibility to make sure that this broad portfolio of solutions include sustainable technologies and also include better financial mechanisms to help growers fund the adoption of sustainable ag practices. We are also working on a system, a digital platform, and this is the issue that I mentioned, that it's funny to see that the challenges, they hit everyone. So we are also working on this system and digital platform to better understand and identify what are the key issues and environmental compliance difficulties among our clients, so that together with the agronomic recommendations we provide to them, we can also put on top of that, offer a support for them to improve their environmental compliance status. So imagine if every retail company, every distribution company in the ag chain could provide, besides the agronomic recommendation, which we will all provide to our customers, we could put on top of that the sustainable recommendation for them to improve their environmental compliance status, and maybe go beyond that, beyond compliance, but improve their adoption of sustainable ag practices. So this is the thing we are building right now as we speak, with the efforts of many, and hopefully we'll be able to inspire our colleagues in the chain as well, and other retail companies and distribution companies to do the same. And as we improve governmental databases or green certifications like Selo Verde, just mentioned by Raoni, as we improve those other mechanisms, we can turn this work easier by using public database, by using already these green certifications in our business model. So, we are connecting this agronomic recommendation with sustainable recommendation. And by doing that, we'll be implementing a business model based on inclusive agriculture, especially supporting those family farming ones to not only follow a agronomic recommendation, but also follow a sustainable ag practice recommendation.
Wonderful, and I wish you all the success in this task. Raoni, could you explain a little bit more about the Selo Verde? I think now it's time, it's good to listen to you since Catarina just mentioned it.
Great. No, thanks, Catarina, for mentioning it. The idea of Selo Verde actually stemmed from the article we published a couple of years ago in Science, the rotten apples of Brazil's agribusiness. And the main conclusion of the article had two sides. One, illegalities are very concentrated. Only 2% of the farms are actually responsible for more than 2/3 of all illegal deforestation taking place inside farms in the Amazon, in the Cerrado. Therefore, the rotten apples. And also, while we have about 20% of Brazil's export going on soy and beef to Europe with links to deforestation, either directly and indirectly, we have 80% which are not linked to deforestation. So, I mean, it is a problem, but it's a sizable problem, and we should strive forward to clean up the supply chain. It's not impossible, So basically, we arrived at the conclusion that those that suggest that 100% of agricultural production in Brazil is linked to deforestation are wrong, and those that say zero are also wrong. But there is a task. It's a sizable task, but it's a possible task. And towards the end of the article, we realized that we need to have a sectoral, countrywide approach, applying technological tools which actually have been developed in the context of the article, but others could also replicate, which does that kind of analysis for the whole country. If we are going to do this farm by farm, asking farmers to deliver new information, etc., company by company, that's probably not going to be enough. We need something that has a basis and has in it that same infrastructure for everybody. And we have proposed that for different levels. And the government of Pará, they really saw that as a very important way to move forward, because the state of Pará, of course, is the region in Brazil with the highest deforestation rates. And this is extremely problematic. But at the same time, they also have farmers which are good producers, that follow the legislation, that are striving to place in the market their produce. And right now, they're having increasing difficulties to do so. So when you have a solution that basically gives transparency and enables the different nodes of the supply chain to separate the good from the bad, then everybody, especially those that which are producing in a right way, in a sustainable way, those are the ones actually winning. And also the government of Minas Gerais, they also they heard the proposal and they're also implementing it. There are two main challenges here. One is technological, so we need to develop systems which are able to automatically combine, clean huge data sets, which are not only complex, they are messy, they have problems. So there is a technical challenge there, but we have been able to strive forward and advance a lot. But then you have maybe what's most crucial, a political challenge, so we have some actors within the agricultural sector in Brazil. They do not want more transparency, unfortunately, and this is, and especially at the federal level, especially in the Brazilian Congress. So it has become a difficult conversation. But we hope that as the pressure for separating the good from the bad increases, as legislation in Europe passes, and it's likely to do, and actors such as Nutrien and Amadio, which are striving to actually do an excellent job in terms of increasing standards of sustainability, will have a stronger voice in the sector, and then turn the table and actually make this vision that we actually need more transparency and we need to separate the good from the bad. And then we hope that a Selo Verde solution or a similar solution might be implemented at national level, because it is technically feasible. Now, the main challenge is a political one.
Fingers crossed to everything you just said. I hope it works and it will. Isabel, and what about Imaflora? Of course, you are doing a lot of things related to deforestation, but what are you, like, the most important initiative you do for ending deforestation?
Thanks, great. So we are working with Raoni a lot, with Selo Verde, and our two initiatives, that's Beef on Track and Soy on Track. So Beef on Track and Soy on Track, we try to cooperate and to work very closely with the Soy Moratorium group that Juliana knows very, very well. It's really a successful multi-stakeholder action. In Beef on Track, we work mostly with the federal prosecutors, and now with the team of Raoni, the team of Friends of the Earth, Amazon, to really get this more unified system. So as Raoni said, we need a pre-competitive approach. We need a system that can be shared with all, and with all sides of meat industries, and really organize these huge databases to be possible to provide the analysis to prove that meat companies are eliminating deforestation from their supply chains. So we are in this huge effort with many partners, with civil society, and also with the industry. And also in soy moratorium, because soy moratorium, it's a very, very good, very proved model to fight deforestation in the soy sector. But we have also challenges. There are always challenges, and there are always ways to improve. So that's the way Imaflora is working in this matter. And the other way, as Juliana said, is in the carbon side. So we are with another program now. It's Carbon on Track also. It's the family on track of Imaflora, that we are supporting and cooperating with companies to calculate their carbon balances and to show this, and to not only to deliver as a consultant firm. We're not a consultant firm. We are an NGO. So we are doing this calculation of the carbon balance, but to show this in a platform and to show in a public way with aggregated data without to expose names or shape files of the farms, but to demonstrate who is on the track of low carbon agriculture, to inspire other producers. And as Juliana said, that's very, very a reality. The problem is how to scale up this, because the data about the production within the farm is hard to collect, because farmers are different. There are more sophisticated farmers, farmers more able to get all this technical information, and there are small and medium farmers that are not able to do that. That's why, again, the cooperation with companies are essential. So companies like Minerva, GBS, Bayer are working with farmers, and we are working with them to provide more databases to be possible to demonstrate low carbon agriculture in Brazil. So we are working with both approaches. So strengthening the commitments to fight deforestation, and work with the carbon agenda, the climate agenda, to demonstrate who is in the good way to inspire others to come.
Thank you, Isabel. Since you brought up the low carbon agriculture, and we we didn't talk much about the regenerative agriculture yet, but I know you mentioned, and we know that when we launch the study, we are going to have some information on that. I'd like to hear, Juliana, in two questions. So what you are doing, what AMAGGI is doing to end deforestation, and how you see the regenerative agriculture role in that, especially what are the challenges to scaling up regenerative agriculture, because it's one of the hottest topics nowadays, but we know that there are some challenges in terms of scale. So I'd like to hear from you, like, these both questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Luana. So as the first part of the question about ending deforestation, and we launched our commitment to a zero deforestation, zero conversion of native vegetation supply chain. We have some very specific targets established to each year. So by the end of 2022, we want to achieve 100% of our direct suppliers in the entire of Brazil, the whole Brazil, being monitored in a daily basis with a polygonal information. We already achieved 99.7% on the risky areas like Amazon biome and Cerrado biome, but we wanted to achieve 100% of Brazil by the end of this year. And by 2025, we want to achieve this whole direct, indirect suppliers in Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay. Argentina and Paraguay are not a big percentage of our operations, but we know they are sensitive biomes as well. So we want to include this in our efforts and our targets. By 2025, there will be the cutoff date of zero deforestation, zero conversion. However, we already achieved, when we make the analysis from the whole supply chain for the last 3 crops, we had zero deforestation, zero conversion for soy by 2020. So I would say that in our supply chain, there is no deforestation, no conversion related to soy but after 2020. This connects a lot to our target to be net zero by 2050, because of course this is entirely connected to our scope 3. And this is why we have this target and have a reference date of 2020 to analyze what is the gap that is missing there. This is how we decided to do, because illegality, it's illegality. I don't want to have anything in any contact with illegality. It's not acceptable. But the legality, I need to find ways to compensate the farmers. So I have to understand my database, my information of farmers. How do I include them? Not only the direct suppliers, but the indirect suppliers as well. So this is the challenge that we have. And we are being very transparent every year on how much we are aggregating of information. So we were able to increase 21% of the volume of the indirect supplies from one year to another. However, my indirect supplies was bigger in this last crop due to logistic issues. So I need to balance all of this every year. So this is where I mentioned that it's not easy, because it will change depending on competitive issues. When you talk about regenerative agriculture, we have 2 big challenges, in my opinion. The first one is, what is regenerative agriculture? Because if you look into other countries, they are saying regenerative agriculture to issues that are conservation agriculture, that are already implemented by Brazil, as no-till. How do you do some agriculture good practice? So we need, by the end, having something that conservative agriculture is that and regenerative agriculture is that. Otherwise, people are going to use this as regenerative agriculture, and Brazil, that has gone very far and very fast on conservative agriculture, will lose track, because people will not understand what are the differences. So I think this is one big challenge. And the other one is regenerative agriculture for big crops, such as soy, corn, cotton. They are not as this regenerative agriculture from an agroforestry issue. So we need to have the database, an information, a methodology to guarantee that we are going to work on specific issues that are considered regenerative agriculture, but it's for a large scale. And we have been working on this in our own farms with Embrapa for the last 3 years. And we still don't have all the data that we need to say that this is the difference from conservative to regenerative for soy. So this is how you need to include science in your information. It's not only saying that we are going to go regenerative. I don't know what it is for soy that has turned to corn and or to cotton. What does it mean? And how am I going to structure a methodology with real KPIs that are able to fulfill? And then I go to my supply chain on this. How do I implement this in my supply chain? So I think we have those challenges because normally people say, let's go to regenerative agriculture. And then they are just saying that this is what regenerative agriculture is, and we are implementing this. But I don't see a KPI for year to year to guarantee that this is robust enough. So we know that regenerative agriculture is a key element for us to be net zero by 2050, but we need to be very specific on what are the things that we need to analyze and validate as regenerative agriculture for big crops.
Thank you, Juliana. We only have 5 minutes now, but I would love to hear your final remarks. And if you can tackle, especially Professor Rajão, what regenerative agriculture is in terms of academy, it would be great. And also you, Catarina, if you could point out to like how you see regenerative agriculture in your business model, I would appreciate to hear. Raoni, can you start, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in contrast to conventional agriculture, which aims just to looks at that specific crop year, and also they only try to maximize short-term returns, regenerative agriculture looks at the long term. And also it looks not only at the economic benefits, but also the environmental benefits. So for applying specific techniques such as no tiling, also taking care of the soil, so letting it protected at all times. And with crop rotation, it's possible, for instance, to have so that the soil starts also to capture CO2 and becomes an important sink, in addition to reduce, for instance, the need to apply fertilizers and also other inputs. So there are different advantages from different angles, but it really does require much more technology, and also it also requires, let's say, a stronger discipline from the part of the farmers that rather than going to what is the highest value crop of that year, it will take a longer term perspective and, for instance, do crop rotation among other issues. Because one of the problems we are facing right now, and also in the soy sector as a whole, is that you also in terms not only of the soils, but also with fertilizer and also pesticides, there is an additional use there. Every year it's increased, and one of the reasons for that is because of just a management that every year put the same crop on top of that area that just increases resistance. In the same way, if you just give antibiotics to one person year after year, that person is going to have a higher resistance against those same types of diseases. So regenerative agriculture really brings together those different aspects and have multiple benefits. So a push towards that, together with a high level of legality towards more data, is certainly the way forward.
Thank you for being so precise and quick. Catarina, please.
Great to hear, Juliana and Raoni. Definitely, we need to better understand the methodology and protocols behind the concept of regenerative agriculture. We definitely have an opportunity here to include that in our agronomic recommendations to help growers follow this path. But however, when we talk, for example, with colleagues in other countries, we hear different elements of the regenerative agriculture. For example, in the US, the teams are really putting lots of effort in no-till adoption, which is something already a reality here in Brazil. So what are the other elements of regenerative agriculture that we need to push to incentivize? And what is the roadmap or the KPIs that we should follow in order to see if we are really evolving and improving in the adoption of these elements?
Thank you. Isabel?
Great. Yes, I think that's a very, very good question that Juliana raises, and I will try to, in the final version of the study, to at least to have this question, if I could not answer, but it's very, very interesting. And we brought in the study a paper. It's very interesting about what the concepts and definitions around regenerative agriculture. So I incentivize all of you to read that. It's from Peter Newton of the, where is Peter Newton? In the United States. I forgot the name of his university, but it's very interesting. And it's really a challenge to explain very, very well. What we are talking with research that regenerative agriculture has to do a lot with soil, and carbon soil, it's key. So that's other challenge, as Juliana said, to specify what is this in big crops. More problematic than answer, but that's it.
Yeah, but it's great because this is to give people curiosity to take part in our event during COP27 and read our study. And that's why I left the regenerative agriculture for the end of this panel. I thank you so much for joining us. I thank you, my colleagues here in the panel and the audience. As we said since the beginning, it's a very complex issue. We could stay here for days and days. It's been years that all of us have been working with the topic. So it's a complex one to deal just in 1 hour and a half. Thank you so much and see you soon in COP27. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.